one of the more insidious political movements that pops up on very specific spaces on the left and right. I haven't really seen it in the center, but in certain subsections of the left and right, there is an anti-freedom of movement segment. It's not as in a way of like borders versus no borders versus open borders versus one state kind of thing, but as in like a you can't leave sort of thing. You see it with certain people who on the right are like, yeah, pregnant women shouldn't be allowed to go out of the state for an abortion, right? And that's an anti-freedom of movement stance. It's that you're not allowed to go someplace else to follow the rules of that place. You must stay here and follow our rules. You do not have the right to leave or to move or to do any such thing. I first saw this. I guess we all first see it growing up when we learn about things like East Berlin, and North Korea and the like. I first saw it when I was doing some research through some communism subreddits for a play I was writing. And the specific context I remember reading it about was with doctors. I guess this is actually where you see it on the center sometimes too, because it's popped up with an idea for funding medical education, I think, with the NIH or NHS over in England. And the idea that if you get this education in the community, you are required to then give it back to the community. What I find insidious about this, besides the anti-freedom aspect of it in general and the sort of anti-democratic aspect of it, is that it is destructive toward the idea of individuality, just period. It's a sort of authoritarian collectivism that seeks to destroy the individual. I think extreme individualism is obviously bad. Extreme collectivism, despite what some may want to say, is also kind of bad. We are individuals at the end of the day. We're not a hive mind. We have individual wants, individual desires, individual needs. And so if you're at pure group rule, you're going to have the things that the founders warned about. I've been reading the Federalist Papers recently, and they very specifically talk about the tyranny of the majority and how sometimes that can be used to trample on the rights of the minority, which is, like a thing that we talk about often in civics courses growing up here in America. It's like a very basic thing we talk about, but in these forms of anti-movement things, this authoritarian idea, it becomes a sort of tyranny of the majority. The idea that you owe a very specific place. It's not an allegiance to humanity or to health in general or to your family or to any such thing. It's allegiance to a specific place and time, which doesn't that lend itself to nationalism? Doesn't this whole idea lend itself to like that dumbass MAGA communism shit? Like, if you're not allowed to move around and you're beholden to the collective, you're going to find a sort of blood and soil connection to that very specific place that you're not really allowed to leave because you're supposed to give back all that they gave you. It goes beyond doctors. It's the whole idea that they educated you, so you should stay and give back your education to them. And it's like, that's dangerous, isn't it? It's going to restrict flow in and out of the country, obviously, which happens sometimes in authoritarian governments, but it's also going to restrict flow between communities. So, say you're in a poor section of the country, you would be required to stay there. Say you're in a place that does not have the sorts of jobs that you're wanting to go into. Well, they were the ones who raised you, so you owe it to them to stay there and not do the things that you want to do or are good at. And I just find it worrisome. I don't think it's really important because I don't think it'll ever be influential really in American politics. That specific version of the left has no power, never will have any power. And despite that version of the right having some power, I don't necessarily think they'll be able to win on the pure anti freedom of movement stances that some of them have. Honestly, the ones that are most likely to succeed are the centrist versions, with the doctor example that I brought up. So I guess the center is kind of most concerning here, not because they're the most extreme on this, but because they're the most likely to be able to implement their wants. Anyway, people should be able to move, obviously. If you're anti freedom of movement, sorry, I think you should not have power ever. Okay, bye.